guards at the door yet. Unfortunately, that's the direction our society is going. We're going to have metal detectors to go to your own bathroom, but not yet. Go, and you know what you'll find? You'll find a bunch of patriotic, in this case, white American women who love the Lord, who pray when they open their meeting, who pray before they dine, who pray when they close their meeting, and are trying to find a way to leave a better country for their children and grandchildren. That's what you'll find. You won't find a room full of racists, but if you don't ever actually take the initiative to show up and find that out for yourself, shut your mouth. Because you're ignorant. You don't even know what you're talking about. So what I've begun doing, and many, if not most of you know this, is trying to find ways to do two things. Educate the black and the brown community on what I just said, that they're not a bunch of racists, and unless you've gone to find out for yourself that they are, don't tell me that. And number two is to educate the Republicans and the conservatives and say, look, you've got to cross the aisle. Black and brown people aren't going to come to this meeting. You've got to go to theirs. Right. And let them see. Yeah, they may hate you at first. But you know what? I'm a big boy. I can put on a set of Depends and sit there all day. Done it lots of times, you know. Get me a 12-pack and 15 football games in a row, and I'll just sit there on the couch all night. Don't you have to go to the bathroom? Depends. Go down to where you find black and brown people and begin developing the relationships. So what we've done, what I've done, is I was just thinking about this one night after the last election, and I came up with 5 things. 5 things that pretty much any candidate or incumbent or county chair or whatever can begin incorporating into their process, into their campaign, to start the process of getting in front of divergent voters and developing face and name recognition. Because there are no votes for us right now. Down at the Urban League, down at the NAACP. There are no votes for us there right now. Not many. Maybe a couple, but there's no votes there. But we can't pursue the votes right now due to lack of relationship. No one's going to vote for somebody they've never seen or heard of. So sending some people into the black and brown neighborhood 5 weeks before election and handing out flyers and saying, take a look at us, that's insultful. That's an insult. Where were you 6 years ago? Where were you 10 years ago? And I would say this, the Republican Party, in my opinion, does not need to change its policies much, does not need to change its principles. I would even argue it really doesn't need to change its people much. For the most part, the people are fine, with a handful of exceptions. With a handful of exceptions, for the most part. It's not policies, it's not principles, it's not people. Our policies, principles, and people are better, and if you don't believe it, you don't have to look any further than Detroit. Detroit, Michigan, you all know, is a shambles, is broke, is bankrupt, one of the greatest cities in the world, 30 years ago, is gone. Less than half the population. Under 700,000 people. Detroit was at once 1.6 million, now it's under 700,000. There are over 7,000 abandoned buildings in Detroit. 7,000. People and companies and shops and mom and pop restaurants and stuff that have said, screw it, can't make the pay, we're just packing up and moving down to grandma's house in Alabama, and just left those buildings there for kids to throw rocks through the windows, and they're still there to this day. Detroit is per capita is the most heavily black populated city in the country. About 90%, 84.7% black population in Detroit. So it's apparent, even to the black people, that the policies of the Democrat Party don't work. It's not policy. It's obvious that the issue the Republican Party has isn't its policies, because if it was just policy driven, we could look at Detroit and look at the fact that it's been in control of Democrats for 60 years and say the policies work great. They don't. So it's obviously not policy. It's lack of relationship. Those people in Detroit are going to walk into the booth next year and pull the lever for Democrats again. Why? Because they don't know anything about the Republicans. And they aren't going to come to a CFRW meeting, so what we have to do on our side of the fence is take our CFRW meetings to them. And I've developed a 5-point plan, 5 things that any incumbent or candidate can do to begin the process of getting into those neighborhoods, getting in front of those voters, and presenting themselves as human beings first, politicians second. This could take decades, but we don't have a choice but to get it started. Because if we don't get it started, the demographic shift of America isn't going to change. We're going to continue to see an influx of immigrants, the majority of them brown. And the day may come when somebody waves a magic wand and just says, poof, now you can vote. 12 million people, and we got a real problem. So beginning the process of getting in front of those voters and standing up for who we are as people, not what I believe as a politician, not what I believe in terms of policy, not what I believe in terms of taxation, but I got a kid that goes to Oklahoma State University. I don't. I'm just, but not policy, but gee, I like those shoes. Not policy, but damn, it's been raining a lot. Developing face and name recognition, becoming human beings, not Republicans. First. Maybe for 2 years, maybe for 5 years, maybe for 10 years, maybe for 50 years, I don't know. But we start there, and then we get into the policy talk and stuff later. And the Democrats figured this out 50, 60 years ago. We were at the Cinco de Mayo festival. Some of you were down there with us. They had, the whole thing roped off in front of the county state capitol here, in front of the dome. And there's a choke point where you have to go through to get into the inside of the fence, metal detectors. Right outside of there, 3 voter registration people standing there with their clipboards, registering people to vote. Guess how they were probably registering those people? Good-looking young kids, bilingual, have you registered to vote? Let's get your information, and just stand there. Republicans, we need to be there too. We were standing in our booth telling people, handing them a flyer over there on our table, and saying, hear the other side before you decide. Why would you just run over to those guys and take what they have to say for granted and for truth? Why would you not at least listen to what the Republicans have to say? By the way, we're American conservatives of color. We're not the Republicans. We just think the way we've been voting is stupid. As blacks, and you don't want to be where we are in 20 years, where you just automatically vote for one side because that's what you've always done. Because if you do, Colorado's the beginning, Detroit's the end. Is that what you want for your family, to be Detroit in 20 or 30 years? I'm telling you now, I've read the last page. I can tell you how this ends if you just go straight to those guys, register and vote for them all the time. Detroit is how it ends. So, hear the other side before you decide. And hand them a flyer. Some of those people put the flyer in the garbage 15 feet away. Some of them took them home and read it. And it was a start. It was a face. It was somebody saying, you know what? The Republicans are not what you've been told your entire life that they are. It's not true. They're not all these rich, country club living, supercharged Jaguar driving people who secretly want to eat your children. It's not true. Most of them are working hard, struggling with the same things you struggle. A lot of us, God forbid, are barely checked a mouth. We're not driving around in Mercedes-Benz. None of that stuff's true. But if you believe that's true, why do you believe it? Because you clearly have never been to a CFRW meeting. I don't know most of you personally, but I sincerely guess that relatively few of you have a 7 or 8 figure net worth. If you do, please see me afterwards. Buy a case. It's just not true. Pauline talked about the party of choice in the ad that we did in conjunction with those guys, and they did a tremendous job. And the principles of the party of choice are things that we can incorporate and should incorporate and are going to begin incorporating into everything we do. As a Republican, as a conservative, I am in favor of every individual choice so long as it does not take away somebody else's choice. As long as your choice does not eliminate anybody else's choice, that's what I'm in favor of. And before you go there with abortion, abortion takes away somebody else's lifetime of choices. So I can't be for that. If I'm for giving you the choice to terminate that person's life, that's a whole lifetime of choices they'll never get to make. But I'm in favor of choices. I want you to run your life. I don't want to run your life, and I don't want you running mine. This is the message the Republican Party needs to and starts delivering. So in other words, as a conservative, if you don't want a 40-ounce soda, what do? You don't buy a 40, you get a 20-ounce soda, right? But if you're a liberal and you don't want a 40-ounce soda, what do? You pass laws so that nobody can have a 40-ounce soda. Right. As a conservative, if you think table salt, you got enough sodium in